The grand ballroom of the Cross Imperial was packed. Every major news outlet in New York had sent their top journalists. The room buzzed with speculation. Damien Cross, the billionaire who'd been silent since his wife's viral social media post, was finally ready to speak. Elena watched from her apartment, the modest one-bedroom Christian had rented for her in Brooklyn, a far cry from the penthouse she'd lost. Her hands trembled as she held her phone, streaming the live coverage. "You don't have to watch this," Christian said from the doorway, but his voice lacked conviction. He looked haggard, his usually easy smile replaced by worry lines. Being named in a billionaire's divorce had destroyed his career overnight. "I need to see what he says," Elena answered. A part of her still believed she could control the narrative. She'd painted herself as the victim so perfectly. Surely Damien wouldn't. The cameras flashed as Damien walked to the podium. He looked different. Harder. The soft edges love had given him were gone, replaced by the ruthless businessman who'd built an empire. His grey eyes were cold as steel, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "Thank you all for coming," Damien began. "I'm here to address the allegations made by my soon-to-be ex-wife, Elena Cross, regarding our marriage and pending divorce." Elena's breath caught, the formal tone, the ex-wife, the complete absence of emotion. Elena has portrayed herself as a devoted wife abandoned during pregnancy by a cruel husband. This narrative has spread rapidly, and I've received death threats, lost business partnerships, and been condemned publicly without the opportunity to defend myself. He paused, letting that sink in. "Today, I present the truth." A screen behind him lit up with a timeline. "My wife and I were married 2 years ago. For the first year, our marriage was happy. Then I became focused on a major business expansion, and I admittedly neglected her emotional needs. She complained. I promised to do better. I scheduled time off to surprise her and reconnect." The screen showed the date, the day of his accident. "On my way to surprise her, I was hit by a delivery truck. I sustained severe injuries, including damage to my optic nerves. My vision was impaired." Damien's voice remained steady, clinical. "However, the damage healed within 3 weeks. My vision returned completely, but a close friend, my doctor, had noticed something concerning during my recovery. He suggested I continue to pretend to be blind, to test my wife's loyalty during a vulnerable time." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "For 6 months, I pretended to be blind. And for 6 months, I watched my wife have an affair with my assistant, Christian Wolf." The screen changed. Photographs appeared: Elena and Christian at restaurants, hotels, in parking garages. Time-stamped, dated, undeniable. Elena's phone slipped from her hands. "These photographs were taken by a private investigator," Damien continued. "They document multiple instances of infidelity, including weekend trips disguised as work conferences, intimate dinners, and frequent visits to our penthouse where they would lock themselves in the guest bedroom, while I sat in my study supposedly blind and unaware. More photos, text messages, email exchanges, but the most damaging evidence isn't about the affair itself," Damien said, and his voice finally showed emotion, cold, controlled rage. "It's about the pregnancy my wife claims is mine." He held up a document. "This is Elena's opt-in report showing she's 12 weeks pregnant. We haven't shared a bed in 3 months. I moved to a separate room citing comfort issues from my injuries. And this," he held up another document. "This is a hotel reservation showing Elena and Christian Wolf spent 3 nights at a luxury resort in Napa Valley 11 weeks ago. 1 room, 1 bed." The room erupted. Cameras flashed. Journalists shouted question. Damien raised his hand for silence. "I have submitted to a paternity test, which Elena has refused. The courts have now ordered one. But the timeline makes the truth clear: the child Elena carries is not mine." Elena was sobbing now, mascara running down her face. Christian stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. "Elena has also claimed I abandoned her," Damien continued. "The truth is, I discovered evidence of her affair, her pregnancy, and draft divorce papers, where she planned to claim half my wealth while lying about the child's paternity. I confronted her. She admitted she no longer loved me, and I served her with divorce papers that same evening." He pulled out one final document, the audio recording from his phone. "This is Elena's voice, recorded in my home without her knowledge, which is legal in New York State as a one-party consent jurisdiction. In it, she discusses her plans to make sure everything's in place regarding the foundation, the assets, the settlement, because she can't walk away with nothing after what she's given up for him. He played the audio. Elena's voice filled the ballroom, cold and calculating, discussing her strategy with Christian. When it ended, the silence was absolute. "I loved my wife," Damien said, and now his voice cracked slightly, the first real emotion breaking through. "I loved her completely. I gave her everything. And she destroyed that love with lies, betrayal, and manipulation. So yes, I'm divorcing her. No, the child isn't mine, and no, she will not be receiving half my wealth or ongoing support beyond what our prenuptial agreement stipulates." He looked directly into the camera. "Elena, if you're watching, you played a game you couldn't win. You lied to the world, and now the world knows the truth. I hope it was worth it." He walked away from the podium without taking questions, leaving a room full of stunned journalists, and a streaming world that had just watched a woman's lies detonate in real time. The internet exploded. Within hours, Damien Cross was trending worldwide. Elena's social media, which had been flooded with support, turned vicious. "She's a liar and a cheat. He gave her everything and she played him for a fool. Imagine pretending to be blind to catch your cheating wife. That's some next-level pain. She deserves everything she gets, taking advantage of a disabled man. Disgusting." Elena's phone wouldn't stop buzzing with notifications. Hate messages, lost friendships, former supporters demanding apologies. Her carefully constructed victim narrative had collapsed in spectacular fashion. Christian was fired from his new job before he even started. The cease and desist order meant he couldn't contact Damien or work for any cross-affiliated company, which in New York's interconnected business world meant most major corporations. "We're ruined," Christian said, pacing their tiny apartment. "Absolutely ruined. Do you know what this means? I can't get work, you're radioactive, and we have a baby coming. Stop." Elena screamed. "Just stop. I need to think." But there was nothing to think about. The truth was out, the evidence was undeniable, and the court-ordered paternity test would prove what everyone already suspected. Elena had lost every sight. Her marriage, her reputation, her financial security, her social standing, all because she'd been lonely and stupid and greedy. She looked at Christian, the man she destroyed her marriage for, and felt nothing but resentment. He wasn't Damien. He'd never been Damien. He was just available. Attentive. A distraction from her problems instead of a solution to them. "I need to fix this," Elena said suddenly. "How?" Christian demanded. "He has evidence, photographs, recordings. There's nothing to fix." "There has to be a way," Elena insisted, her mind racing. "Something that would make people sympathize with me again. Something that would make you the victim again." Christian laughed bitterly. "Elena, face it. You fucked up, we both did. And now we're paying for it." But Elena wasn't listening. She was scrolling through her phone, looking at the hate comments, trying to find an angle, a way to spin this. A way to then she saw it, a comment that made her pauses still think it's weird. "He pretended to be blind for 6 months. That's kind of psycho behavior, right? Like, who does that?" Elena's mind began working. Damien had deceived her too. He'd lied about being blind, he'd manipulated her, tested her, violated her privacy. Maybe she couldn't win the sympathy vote on the affair, but she could raise questions about his methods. What kind of man pretends to be disabled to trap his wife? What kind of husband records his wife without her knowledge? What kind of person plays mind games instead of communicating honestly? It wasn't much, but it was something. A crack in his perfect victim narrative, and Elena had always been good at finding cracks and wedging them open. She began typing a new post, her fingers flying across the screen. "Yes, I made mistakes. Yes, I hurt someone I loved. But I was manipulated by a man who pretended to be blind for 6 months to test me. Who does that? Who plays psychological games with the person they claim to love? Who violates privacy and trust under the guise of being a victim? I was wrong to cheat, but he was wrong to be the kind of husband who made me feel so alone that I looked elsewhere. We're both flawed. The difference is, I admit it. Number 2 sides to Vera's story, number toxic marriage, number psychological abuses. She posted it before Christian could stop her, then sat back and waited to see if it would catch fire. It didn't. The internet had already made up its mind. A few people agreed with her, but they were drowned out by the overwhelming consensus. Elena was a cheater, a liar, and a gold digger who got caught, and was now trying to deflect blame. One comment summed up the general feeling. Girl, you cheated, got pregnant by his employee, planned to divorce him and take his money, then lied to the world. Him testing you by pretending to be blind is nothing compared to what you did. Take the L and move on. Elena threw her phone across the room where it shattered against the wall. She'd lost. Completely and utterly lost. And the worst part, she'd lost to a man she'd underestimated from the beginning. 3 weeks after the press conference, the court-ordered paternity test results came back. Marcus Chen called Damien with the news. You need to sit down for this. Damien was in his new office. He'd relocated to a different building, unable to work in the space where he'd once planned a future with Elena. Just tell me, Marcus, is the baby Christian's? There was a pause, a long, heavy pause that made Damien's stomach drop. No, Marcus said slowly. The baby isn't Christian's. Damien's world tilted. What? The paternity test shows Christian Wolf is not the biological father of Elena's child. And neither are you. The silence on the line was absolute. Then who? Damien couldn't even finish the question. We don't know yet, Marcus said. But Damien, there's more. Elena's Aubergine records show this wasn't her first pregnancy. She had a termination 6 months before you met her. And there are records of fertility treatments she was receiving during your marriage treatments she never told you about. Damien felt like he was falling. She was trying to get pregnant on purpose. It looks that way, and given the paternity results, she was sleeping with at least 3 men, you, Christian, and someone else. The room spun. Damien gripped the edge of his desk, trying to process what he was hearing. Elena hadn't just cheated with Christian, she'd been having multiple affairs. She'd been trying to get pregnant deliberately, probably to trap one of them into providing for her. The woman he'd loved didn't just not exist. She was a complete fabrication. Find out who the father is, Damien said, his voice cold and deadly. Find out everything. Every man she was with, every lie she told. I want to know exactly who I was married to. Damien, maybe it's better to just let this go. Find out. Damien cut him off. She tried to pass off another man's child as mine. She lied to the world. She destroyed my reputation before I could clear my name. I want to know everything, Marcus sighed. I'll get the investigators on it. 2 days later, they had their answer, and it was worse than Damien could have imagined. The biological father was David Reeves, a venture capitalist Elena had met at a foundation fundraiser. Married, wealthy, and completely unaware Elena was pregnant. But that wasn't the bombshell. The bombshell was that Elena had been systematically sleeping with wealthy, successful men for over a year, trying to get pregnant by one of them so she could secure her financial future, either through child support or by claiming the baby was her husband's, and ensuring he'd never leave her. Christian hadn't been her great love. He'd been her backup plan when she realized Damien was growing suspicious. David Reeves was her primary target, wealthier than Damien, easier to manipulate, already married, so he'd pay anything to keep an affair quiet. The investigators' report was damning. Elena had opened secret bank accounts, received cash payments from at least 2 men, and had been planning her exit strategy for months before Damien's accident. The accident hadn't derailed her plans. It had accelerated them. She'd seen an opportunity in Damien's blindness to continue her affairs while playing devoted wife, buying time to figure out which man would be her best financial bet. She's a con artist, Marcus said, showing Damien the evidence. This was never about loneliness or your work schedule. This was a calculated plan to secure wealth by any means necessary. Damien stared at the documents, feeling nothing. He'd moved past hurt into something else entirely, a cold, clinical detachment from the woman he'd once loved. Does she know yet about the paternity results? She was served with them this morning, and Christian also served. From what our people report, he's not taking it well. That was an understatement. Christian Wolf sat in the Brooklyn apartment he shared with Elena, holding the paternity test results with shaking hands. No, his baby. After everything, losing his career, his reputation, his future, the baby wasn't even his. He looked at Elena, who sat curled on the couch, crying. Who is it? His voice was hollow. Christian, I can explain who is the father, Elena. He was shouting now, months of stress and humiliation erupting. I lost everything for you, my job, my career, my name. I can't get work anywhere. My family won't speak to me, and the baby you swore was mine isn't even mine. I didn't know. Elena sobbed. I thought it was yours, or Damien's. I didn't. Or Damien's? Christian's face went white. How many men were you sleeping with? Elena couldn't answer. Wouldn't answer. Christian laughed. A broken sound. Oh my God, you played me too. This whole time you were playing all of us. No, Christian. What we had was real. Stop lying. He threw the papers at her. You don't know how to do anything else. You don't know how to be real. Everything about you is a lie. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. Where are you going? Elena asked, panic in her voice. Anywhere but here, Christian said. I'm done, Elena. Done with your lies, done with this situation, done with you. You want to know the worst part? I actually loved you. I thought we were building something real, but you were just using me like you used Damien, like you used whoever the father of that baby is. Christian, please, good luck with your life, Christian said and walked out, slamming the door behind him. Elena sat alone in the apartment, the paternity results scattered at her feet, and finally understood the depth of what she'd done. She'd destroyed 3 men's lives, 4, counting the biological father who didn't even know yet. She'd lost everything, her marriage, her home, her reputation, her relationships. And now she was pregnant with a child whose father would likely want nothing to do with her once he found out. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is David Reeves' lawyer. We've been made aware of your pregnancy and our client's alleged paternity. Mr. Reeves demands a meeting immediately. He is prepared to pursue all legal options. Elena dropped the phone like it burned her. David, oh God, David knew. His wife would find out, his lawyers would destroy her. And unlike Damien, David had no emotional connection to her. He'd view this as a business problem to eliminate as efficiently as possible. She was alone. Completely alone. Pregnant with a child she didn't want, branded a liar and a con artist with no money, no prospects, and no one to turn to. And it was entirely her fault. Damien sat in his lawyer's office, reviewing the latest updates. The divorce would be final in 2 weeks. Elena would receive only what the prenuptial agreement specified, a modest sum that would let her survive but not thrive. The foundation she'd built with his money would be dissolved and its assets donated to legitimate charities. Christian had fled New York entirely, reportedly back to his hometown in Ohio. David Reeves was handling his situation with cold efficiency. His lawyers had already gotten Elena to sign away any rights to support or contact in exchange for a 6-figure payment, and an NDA. Elena was moving back to Puerto Rico, to her mother's house, to raise a baby alone and in disgrace. It was over. Damien had won completely. So why did he feel so empty? There's one more thing, Marcus said carefully. Elena's lawyer reached out. She wants to speak with you privately. She says she won't ask for anything, she just wants closure. No, Damien said immediately. I told them you'd say that, but Damien, maybe you need it too. Maybe you need it too. Her say it, whatever. It is to actually move on. Damien thought about it. Part of him wanted nothing to do with Elena ever again, but another part, the part that had loved her desperately, needed to understand. No to forgive. No to reconcile, just to understand how the woman he'd loved could have been such a complete fiction. Set it up, he said finally. Neutral location, 1 hour, and I want you there. Done. They met at a private room in an upscale hotel, neutral territory that belonged to neither of them. Marcus waited outside while Damien and Elena faced each other for the first time since the confrontation. Elena looked terrible. Pregnancy had not been kind to her, or maybe it was the stress, the shame, the complete collapse of her life. Her beautiful face was drawn and pale, her honey brown hair lank and unstyled. She wore a simple dress that did nothing to hide her growing belly. Thank you for seeing me, she said quietly. Damien didn't respond, he just looked at her, this stranger wearing his wife's face. I know you hate me, Elena continued. I know you think I'm a monster, and you're right. I am. What I did to you, to us, is unforgivable. Then why am I here? Damien asked coldly. Because I need you to know the truth. No, the version the media has. Not what the investigators found, the real truth. She took a shaky breath. I never loved you. The words should have hurt. Instead, they were almost a relief confirmation of what Damien already knew. I loved what you represented, Elena continued. Security, wealth, status. A life so different from the poverty I grew up in that it felt like a fairy tale. When you proposed after 3 months, I couldn't believe my luck. I thought I'd won the lottery. So you lied from the beginning, Damien said flatly. No, Elena shook her head. I convinced myself I loved you. I played the part so well that sometimes I believed it. But when you started working all the time, when the fairy tale started feeling like a cage, I realized I'd never loved you. I loved the idea of you. So you cheated. So I panicked, Elena corrected. I thought if I lost you, I'd lose everything. I would be back where I started, poor, struggling alone. So I started looking for insurance. Other men. Ways to secure my future if things fell apart. You tried to get pregnant on purpose, Damien said. With multiple men, so you could trap one of us. Elena's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. Yes, it was calculated. Horrible, but yes. I thought if I had a baby, you'd never leave me, or if you did, I'd have child support security. You're a sociopath, Damien said, but there was no heat in it. Just observation. Maybe Elena agreed. Or maybe I'm just a woman who grew up with nothing and was willing to do anything not to go back to that. I'm not asking you to forgive me, Damien. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that you didn't deserve what I did to you. You were kind and generous and loving, and I destroyed that because I was too broken to appreciate it. She stood, preparing to leave. The baby, Damien said. What will you do? Raise it alone. David paid me off to disappear. Christian wants nothing to do with me. My mother will help, but she's ashamed of me. I'll figure it out. She gave a bitter laugh. I always figure it out. Why didn't you just leave? Damien asked the question that had haunted him. If you didn't love me, why not just ask for a divorce? Because I'm a coward, Elena said simply. And because leaving would mean admitting I made a mistake. Admitting that the fairy tale wasn't real. It was easier to cheat, to lie, to tell myself you were the problem because you worked too much. It was easier than facing the truth I married you for the wrong reasons and I'm not a good person. She walked to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I hope you find someone who deserves you. Someone who loves you for real, not for what you can give them. You deserve that, Damien. You always did. And then she was gone. Damien sat alone in the hotel room for a long time, processing. The woman he'd loved had never existed, but at least now he knew why. At least now he had closure. It didn't make it hurt less, but it made it make sense. And sometimes, that's all you can ask for. Damien stood in the hospital garden at St. Catherine's. The same garden where he'd first fallen in love with Elena years ago. But this time, he wasn't alone. Doctor. Sophia Chen stood beside him, her hand in his, watching the sunset paint the sky in gold and orange. They'd been together for 8 months now, a careful, slow-building relationship that felt nothing like his whirlwind with Elena. Sophia was patient, honest, and most importantly, real. She challenged him, supported him, called him out when he needed it, and loved him without agenda. You're thinking about her, Sophia said. It wasn't a question. A little, Damien admitted. No, with longing, just wondering. That's healthy, Sophia said. She was a big part of your life. It's okay to think about her sometimes. Damien smiled. This was what real love looked like. No passion and fireworks and grand gestures, but patience. Understanding. Being seen completely and loved anyway. Did you hear? Sophia continued. One of the nurses told me Elena had her baby, a girl. She named her Esperanza, Hope, Damien translated from the Spanish. Ironic. Maybe not, Sophia said thoughtfully. Maybe she's hoping the baby will be better than she was. That's something, at least. Damien pulled Sophia closer, breathing in her familiar scent vanilla and something distinctly hers. I'm glad I met you, he said softly. Glad I had the courage to try again. Me too, Sophia replied. Though I have to say your first date game is intense. Helicopter rides and Michelin star restaurants, Damien laughed. Too much. Way too much. But I forgive you because the second date was perfect. Their second date had been at a hole in the wall, pizza place Sophia. Loved, followed by a walk through Central Park. Simple, real, perfect. Speaking of dates, Damien said, reaching into his pocket. I have something for you. Sophia turned and her breath caught when she saw what he was holding. A small velvet box. Damien. Before you panic, he said quickly. This isn't a proposal. I know it's too soon, but it is a promise. He opened the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring, not an engagement ring, but a promise ring. A white gold band with their initials engraved inside. A promise that I'm all in, Damien continued. A promise that I'm not running, not hiding, not protecting myself from feeling things. A promise that when I am ready to propose, and I will be, you'll be the only woman I ever ask. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. You know I'm going to say yes, right? When you eventually ask. I'm counting on it, Damien said, slipping the ring onto her finger. They kissed in the garden as the sun set. Two people who'd both been hurt before finding something real in each other. And for the first time since the accident, since the betrayal, since the divorce, Damien felt truly happy. No, because he'd gotten revenge. No, because Elena had gotten what she deserved. But because he'd survived, healed, and found something better. Sometimes the best revenge is just living well. 3 years later, Elena sat in her mother's small house in Puerto Rico, folding laundry while Esperanza, now 3 years old, played with building blocks on the floor. Life was simple now. Modest Elena worked as a receptionist at a local clinic, earning just enough to contribute to household expenses. She lived with her mother, who helped with Esperanza, but never let Elena forget her shame. She'd seen the photos of Damien's wedding to Dr. Sophia Chen, a beautiful, intimate ceremony covered by society pages. The bride was lovely, professional. Everything Elena had pretended to be but never was. Sometimes late at night, Elena allowed herself to wonder what her life would have been like if she'd been honest. If she'd told Damien she was struggling instead of cheating. If she'd gone to counseling instead of Christian's bed. If she'd been brave enough to be real. But those thoughts were pointless. She'd made her choices, and now she lived with the consequences. Mami, mira, Esperanza called, showing off her block tower. Elena smiled despite herself. Muy bonita, mi amor. The baby, her daughter, was the only good thing to come from the wreckage. David Reeves had signed away all rights but provided generous child support under the NDA. Esperanza would never know her father, but she'd never go hungry either. It wasn't the life Elena had dreamed of, but it was the life she'd earned. And maybe, eventually, it would be enough. Damien Cross stood in the nursery of his new home, a beautiful brownstone in the West Village that he and Sophia had purchased together. He was painting the walls a soft sage green, preparing for the arrival of their daughter in 3 months. Their daughter, his and Sophia's, a baby they'd planned for, wanted, and would raise together in love and honesty. Sophia appeared in the doorway, her pregnant belly pronounced under one of his old t-shirts. How's it going? Almost done, Damien said, setting down the brush and pulling her into his arms carefully. You should be resting. I'm pregnant, not broken, Sophia laughed. Besides, I wanted to ask you something. Anything. Are you okay with having a daughter? I know, with Elena and the baby that wasn't yours. Damien understood what she was asking. Was he triggered, traumatized, unable to separate this joy from that pain? I'm more than okay, he said honestly. That situation with Elena taught me something important. Biology matters less than choice. Elena's baby wasn't mine because she chose to betray me. Our daughter will be ours because we're choosing each other every day, intentionally. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. Pregnancy hormones. She blamed them for everything, and she kissed him deeply. I love you, she said. I love that you went through hell and came out still believing in love. I love you too, Damien replied. And I'm grateful for the hell, actually. Because it led me here. To you, to this. He placed his hand on her belly, feeling their daughter kick. This was real. This was right. This was everything he thought he had with Elena, but actually had with Sophia. And he would never ever take it for granted. Christian Wolf sat in a small office in Columbus, Ohio, working as a junior accountant for a mid-sized firm. It was far from the glamorous New York life he'd once had, but it was honest work. He'd spent 3 years rebuilding therapy to understand why he'd made such catastrophic choices, amends to his family who'd eventually forgiven him, and a quiet life far from the spotlight. He dated occasionally, but nothing serious. How could he trust his judgment after Elena? How could he risk his heart again after being so thoroughly manipulated? But he was healing, slowly. One day at a time. Sometimes he thought about reaching out to Damien to apologize, to try to make amends. But he knew better. Some things couldn't be fixed with apologies. Some betrayals were too deep. So instead, Christian focused on being better. Being honest. Being the kind of man who wouldn't make those choices again. It wasn't redemption, but it was something. And maybe, eventually, it would be enough. 5 years after the divorce, Damien received an unexpected letter. It was from Elena, postmarked from Puerto Rico. He almost threw it away unopened. But Sophia, ever wise, suggested he read it. Dear Damien, I don't expect you to respond to this letter. I don't even expect you to read it. But I'm writing it anyway because my therapist says I need to take responsibility for my actions, and I need to start somewhere. I destroyed your life. I lied, cheated, manipulated, and hurt you in ways that are unforgivable. I can't take that back. I can't make it right. All I can do is acknowledge it and tell you that I'm sorry, no. Sorry I got caught, no. Sorry I faced consequences. But genuinely sorry for the pain I caused you. You didn't deserve any of it. I've spent the last 5 years trying to become a better person for my daughter, for myself. And as penance for who I was, I work an honest job. I live modestly. I'm in therapy. I'm trying. I saw your wedding announcement. Your wife is beautiful, and from what I've read, brilliant and kind. You deserve that. You deserved it all along. I hope you're happy, Damien. I hope you found everything with her that I was too broken to give you, and I hope someday you can think of me without anger or pain, just as a chapter that's closed. Thank you for the time you gave me even though I didn't deserve it. Thank you for loving me, even though I couldn't love you back the right way, and thank you for teaching me through your strength and dignity in the aftermath. What real character looks like. I'll never bother you again. Elena. Damien read the letter twice, then set it aside. What will you do? Sophia asked. Nothing, Damien said. She's right, that chapter is closed. I don't hate her anymore. I don't love her. I don't feel anything except relief that I'm not there anymore. He looked at Sophia, at their 4-year-old daughter playing in the next room, at the life they'd built together. She gave me something valuable, Damien continued. No, intentionally, but still. She taught me what I didn't want, and that made it crystal clear what I did want, so, in a twisted way, I'm grateful. That's very evolved of you, Sophia teased. That's very therapied of me, Damien corrected with a laugh. 3 years of counseling earned me that perspective. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching their daughter play. Outside, New York City buzzed with life and possibility. Damien had been tested. He'd been broken, he'd been betrayed, but he'd also survived, healed, and found real love on the other side. And that, he realized, was the best revenge of all, not destroying Elena, but building something so beautiful with Sophia, that Elena's betrayal became nothing more than a footnote in his story. No. The end. Just a painful middle, leading to a beginning that was worth all the hurt. Love isn't blind. It's not about testing or trapping or manipulating. Real love is choosing someone every day, being honest even when it's hard, and building trust through actions, not words. Damien learned that the hard way. But he learned it. And that made all the difference. To everyone who's been betrayed, you will survive this, you will heal, and you will find something better on the other side. No, because you got revenge, but because you had the courage to trust again. May we all be brave enough to love, honestly strong enough to walk away from love. That's toxic, and wise enough to recognize love. That's real when it finally finds us. The end.